the one, the only, Ben Sion.
Good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube Iyun with Sion. Today we're doing Succah Parak Beis Mishnayos Vav and Zayin. There's two different discussions. One in Mishnah Vav and Mishnah Zayin. Mishnah Vav is a machlokas between Chacham and Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says you're supposed to eat 14 sudos in the Sukkah. One by day, one by night, 7 days of Sukkah. Normally a person eats 2 main meals a day, not 3 main meals a day. Breakfast is not considered a meal. Or it is considered a meal. It's a brunch. You eat brunch and you eat dinner. Those are the 2 meals of the day. You see in the Gemara. The Gemara says that you're supposed to eat, Dalit shows, hay shows into the day, Vav shows, right? A brunch. Brunch is the first meal of the day. People don't do this. Brunch and supper, an early supper, 5-6 o'clock supper. You should be eating only 2 meals a day, not 3 meals a day. You see from Elazar, Chacham is saying, no, you're not obligated to eat in the sukkah. You could fast, or if you're eating fruits, you could eat outside the sukkah. But you have to eat one meal of a kibetza or a kazayas, inside the sukkah on the first night, because the Gemara says Tedvav. We learn Gzera Shomer on Pesach. On Pesach, the first night you have to eat matzah. Here also, the first night you have to eat in the sukkah. And that's except the halacha. Most modern Orthodox people, Jewish people, I never knew about this growing up. I learned about it. And a lot of people have chumras based on this, that you have some people say you can't, have honey. A lot of people have honey because the honey, just like matzah with honey, you're not yotzei. So you can't have the bread with the honey. Some people say even you should be leaning. Some people even have matzah. I've even seen people have matzah on the first night of Sukkot. Take it a little extreme. Then we go to Mishnah Zayin. Mishnah Zayin is a machlokas about, let's say you're inside a big sukkah, but your shulchan with the food is outside the sukkah. So you're taking the food from outside the sukkah and you're eating inside the sukkah. Technically, there's no problem. The Shammai says, though, it's asr midrabanan, seemingly asr midrabanan. You might go ahead, if the food's outside the sukkah, you might come to eat outside the sukkah. So therefore, they're worried. They said, don't do this. And it's revealed from the lashon of this Mishnah, Postlin, and we find that in the Gemara and Sukkah and Daf Gimel, that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argue about 2 things. They also argue when you have a very small sukkah, where you can't fit a shulchan in. Right, a sukkah vav by vav, you can only fit Rosh Haruba, but you can't fit your shulchan in. Beis Shammai says it's a puzzle sukkah, you need Zayin by Zayin. Beis Hillel says vav by vav tvachim is kosher b'di'evet. So it makes sense over there. That's why Beis Shammai says Postlin, because it's not a big enough sukkah, you don't have dimensions of a sukkah. It's not considered diras arai. You need a diras arai. You need a dira, right? If it's considered an oal arai, that's not good enough, as we explained throughout the Masechta. But Yisrael says in both cases is kosher. Now, Rad Yer Bar Tanura paskins like Beis Shammai in both cases, and it's explained. The Rif explains that for some explanation, it's hard to understand. Even by the Sukkah Gdola, like the end of the Mishnah says, Lo kiyamta mitzvah sukkah miyamecha, that somehow the Rabbanan had the ability to be oker the mitzvah, even though it's only Gzera the Rabbanan by a big sukkah. You might nimshach achashachano. Even if you ate in the sukkah, you're not yotzei. Like the end of the Mishnah, Lo kiyamta mitzvah sukkah miyamecha, you're not yotzei. It's hard to understand. You're not yotzei. The Ran therefore says you're not yotzei lechatchila because you violated this with the Rabbanan, but you are yotzei as long as you brought the food into the sukkah. But the Rif seems to say you're not yotzei, and the Ramban goes to length to try to explain the Rif in the Milchamos Hashem, explaining the Rif in the back of the Gemara. I'd like to offer an interesting perspective to connect these 2 Mishnayos, Mishnah Vav and Mishnah Zayin. The mitzvah of eating in the sukkah the first night. What is the mitzvah? Is the mitzvah the achila or the mitzvah of yeshiva sukkah? Right? When you eat in the sukkah, what mitzvah are you? Is there a separate mitzvah to eat in the sukkah, or is there a mitzvah of yeshiva sukkah? Right, yeshiva dwelling in a sukkah, and by dwelling in a sukkah, you do the main things that you do in a dwelling place. You sleep there, you eat there. So according to the Rabbanan, right, the mitzvah is not about achila. It's not about achila. The mitzvah we learn tedvav is a mitzvah. You apply it, right? When we have a gzera shava, right? There's 2 different ways of learning a gzera shava, right? Don mina. Like basically, you learn exactly the same halachas from one place to another place. Maybe you have to eat matzah in the sukkah, or don mina uki ba'asra. Don mina, right? You take a gzera shava and you apply it in that situation. The mitzvah of sukkah is fundamentally different than matzah. Matzah is a mitzvah in the achila, but sukkah is not a mitzvah in the achila. It's the dira yeshiva. Sukkah's teishu yeshiva's yamim. So by eating in the sukkah on the first night, you're not making a mitzvah of achila b'sukkah. There's a mitzvah of yeshiva sukkah on the first night, and therefore it's fundamentally different. According to Elazar, the mitzvah is achila, and therefore he learns, right? Basukkah's teishu shivas yomim, inherent in that mitzvah is to eat, right? It says you have to dwell in it, so you have to eat 14 meals. According to the Rabbanan, no, there's a mitzvah of yeshiva sukkah, right? So just like if I don't want to eat, sometimes in my house I don't want to eat. So on the first night I have to eat Gzera Shava, but the rest of the nights not. And connect that to Mishnah Zayin over here. Relezer is considered a shmusi. Relezer came from Beis Shammai. The Rabbanan obviously hold like Beis Hillel. So Relezer holds, right, that the reason you can't have your shulchan outside the sukkah, is because what's the mitzvah? There's a mitzvah to eat in the sukkah. There's a mitzvah to eat in the sukkah. The mitzvah of sukkah is to eat in the sukkah, or to sleep in the sukkah. It's a mitzvah, right? That's a separate mitzvah. The achila is the mitzvah. So therefore, there goes there Shema Yamashach Akar Shulchano, because you might come to eat outside the sukkah. And according to the Rabbanan Beis Hillel, we're not so worried about that because since the mitzvah is yeshiva sukkah, and that's what a person focuses on. He focuses on where his body is. Yeshiva sukkah. We're not so worried he's going to take the food, right, and eat outside and eat outside the sukkah, because a person knows he's supposed to be dwelling in the sukkah. The mitzvah is to dwell in the sukkah. Right, according to Beis Shammai, the focus is the eating, achila b'sukkah. So when it comes to eating, there's a gzera shema shachachashchanu. If we say this, and two machlokesim are related, we come out and you can't split the psak. In Mishnah Vav we paskin like the Rabbana. The mitzvah is yeshiva sukkah. If that's true, then we should paskin like Beis Hillel, who are like the Rabbana. The mitzvah is yeshiva sukkah. We don't make a gzera shema shachachashchanu. However, it's clear from the Gemara. The Gemara says that we do paskin like Beis Shammai, so we have to split it. We say Beis Shammai, we paskin like Beis Shammai, not like Gravadia Bartanura paskins. We paskin like Beis Shammai in both cases. By a sukkah gdola and a sukkah ketana. We say by a sukkah ketana, right? Like the Rifik, like the Ran explains. Sukkah ketana, you don't have the dimension of the sukkah. That's considered all arai. That's why we paskin like Beis Shammai. But Gzera Shema Shachachashchanu, we're not worried about that because people focus on the yeshiva sukkah as the mitzvah. And therefore, there's no Gzera Shema Shulchan. We pass like Beis Hillel when it's a sukkah gedola. If it's a big sukkah, your shulchan happens to be outside, it's okay, right? It's okay. There's no Gzera Shema Shulchan, and you could do that, even l'chadchila. That's what should come out lahalacha. I would think come out lahalacha. And the second afkamina is by the first night of Sukkot. If the mitzvah is yeshiva sukkah, what about if it's mitzdayer or it's raining on the first night? So if the mitzvah is yeshiva sukkah, teishu v'kein taduru, right? Just like mitzdayer is part of the rest of the sukkahs. If you want to eat in the sukkah, you don't have to eat in the sukkah. You don't have to eat in the sukkah. It's a mitzvah yeshiva sukkah. According to Relezer, it's a mitzvah achila. So there's no p'tur on achila sukkah. There's a p'tur in dira on yeshiva sukkah. So maybe Relezer holds that sleeping in there is yeshiva sukkah, but eating is a separate mitzvah. That's why you have to eat 14 meals in the sukkah. There's a separate mitzvah achila b'sukkah besides the mitzvah yeshiva sukkah. So therefore, even if it's raining, it doesn't pater you. That's why the psak in the Mishabura is to wait. And basically even in the rain at Kazayas. But we pass like a Rabbanan, Mitzdayer is Pater min HaSukkah, Yeshiva Gsham is Pater min HaSukkah. So therefore, if it's raining the first night, we pass like a Rabbanan, you're Pater min HaSukkah, the mitzvah is Yeshiva Sukkah. And that's, I think, really how we should hold. Hope you enjoyed today's share. See you in the next one.